Welcome to part 2 of our personal injury education series. In this video, we will go over objective tests to help quantify a lesion or area of injury in an auto accident case. Objective measures are very important to a case because unlike subjective measures, which are qualitative and based on observation and patient perception, objective measures are quantitative. They are not subject to biased input and they are measurable, numeric, and they're records that are not as easily disputed when done properly. So what do I mean done properly? I'm talking about using evidence-based tools that take human error out of the equation, or at least to the best extent possible, and then relating those measurements to the injuries at hand. And we will talk about the imaging and labs that can be connecting the dots between these different objective measurements and causality. First off, let's go over ways to measure objectively. So when you're measuring objectively, you want to look at losses of range of motion and losses of muscular strength. Sprain strain injuries are some of the most common cases from auto accidents, and they are often poorly documented, resulting in lower compensation because range of motion and muscle strength can be subjective. However, they can be objective when using the proper tools. If using digital tools to measure, we can accurately argue the values like loss range of motion. And this can be due to sprain strains, it can be due to nerve damage, whiplash injuries. So we want to have a digital numeric way to measure. In our office, we use a tool called the digital Inclinometer and digital dynamometer. And to measure these values, I'll show you some images. Here is the tool that we use. That's the Hogan Health Industries Microfet 3. And this tool we use because of its reputation. Hogan Health Industries is a trusted medical equipment provider, and in this picture you're seeing the practitioner measure the range of motion of lumbar flexion, which is often injured during disc injuries and such. In this picture it's showing the range of motion of the cervical neck, which is important to measure in sprain strain and whiplash injuries. And that same tool we use for loss of muscular strength. As you see here, we're seeing testing of the deltoid, shoulder muscles. You can measure any muscle group, the arm strength, especially when you have cervical brachial syndromes where you have whiplash injuries to the neck can cause nerve damage down the arm. And as well as leg injuries or lower back injuries that cause nerve damage down the leg. So we're seeing muscle testing of the leg here. When settling a case, the opposing attorney will often claim that losses of strength, function, or range of motion could have been present before the accident, and that you can't prove causality. But a good medical provider will, 1, take these measurements bilaterally, comparing both sides of the injury. If the side of reduced function is the same side of the impact of the accident, it helps prove causality. Then all you need to do is get the right imaging that shows the damage even clearer. Not every case will show case-breaking evidence on images, but in our next lecture we're going to go over specific and several different types of labs and images that can often be very helpful. But even without injury, you can relate objective measures to the patient's subjective questionnaires we talked about last video to help build a stronger case. So if you look at C, we look at orthopedic tests for pain. Orthopedic testing for pains should always be normal and healthy, but can be deranged after an injury. So again, you want to compare sidedness. In the top left picture, the doctor is checking the knee for different injuries through orthopedic tests to see if pain is being caused on one side or the other. To the right, you'll see looking at neck flexion and seeing if there's any pain. That's called Soto-Hall's test. And in the bottom picture, you'll see Kemp's test, which is measuring pain on lumbar extension and rotation. And these are often things that you look at from side to side, related to the injury, related to the proper imaging, and then you have a better case. On deposition, a medical provider can help piece a case together with enough information and with the help of the attorney to provide all the information from the accident. And then sensory motor reflex testing shows this neurological damage, which when there's nerve damage, you have much longer healing time and bigger case fee. So here's an example of how you can piece things together. This is measuring nerve sensitivity, and the top image is part of the neurological test where they're running a pinwheel down the legs to see if there are sensation differences or sensation loss. That may not mean enough on its own, but when you compare that to the bottom left picture showing a bulging disc, which is putting pressure clearly on nerves, in this picture it's down the leg, but it can certainly be in the arm as well, you can relate that to the side of lost sensation. And then on the bottom right, you're looking at a needle EMG testing. So if you have any weakness or any sensation loss, you want to get immediately referred for a needle EMG, which we do in our office. Any medical or chiropractic physician can refer out. And that needle EMG test is showing a direct cause of sensation loss in the extremities. But to the picture of our left, it may not be in the actual extremity, it may be in the spine, which you won't know unless you look for it. And you can even have damage in the brain causing sensation loss that won't show on the bottom two images, but it will show on an fMRI scan in the brain with a diffuse tensor imaging that we're going to talk about next lecture. So when looking at all these tests, we want to put them in perspective. We want to look at these to objectify the lesion and then compare that to ways to report on the lesion, which is going to include imaging, and it's going to include learning more about the accident. All this information we're piecing together in a large puzzle that we're going to show you at the very end. But this is step 2, objectifying, quantifying the lesion. Thank you for watching, and hope to stick around for next video. Thank you.